You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Episode of the Red Moon Podcast, live every single Tuesday night right here on all of your favorite social media accounts at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can like, share, subscribe. We appreciate all the love out there in Radio Land and Video Land. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson. Coming alongside, our normal new host will hopefully be in here in just a second, taking care of some business. But also, our other host,
business is taking care of me.
That's right. Business is taking care of him. Well, we are hoping that everything is okay. Sean is just trying to get a hold of his wife right now. So we're hoping that she's able to answer and pick up, and hopefully Sean can join us here in a sec. Hopefully nothing major going on. We're hoping everything is okay and everything will work out, and she'll respond here in a little bit. So we're hoping Sean will be able to join us in just a moment. But until then, we got some.
Yeah, we're hoping.
We're hoping.
There's a lot of hoping.
Yeah, a lot of hoping. Now, I do want to actually open up on a little bit of a somber note. Obviously, when there are major events that happen in the world, we like to be an escape from all the monotony and the craziness going on. But obviously, there's just a little too much right now in the world, and so our prayers are with those in Israel and all of the craziness that is taking place over there. The absolute butchering of the Jews that happened over the weekend, the Jewish holiday that was taking place, where Hamas terrorists came in and ultimately we're complete barbarians, and Israel has every right to defend itself, and so our thoughts and prayers go out to the people of Israel, and we just hope that ultimately a quick end to the barbarians and the evil that has taken place over in the Middle East. But enough of that.
A nuke.
A nuke. Whoa. Sean's here.
Just turned it into a parking lot.
Oh, wow.
Hey,
right.
He's back. We were hoping.
Everything
our hopes
okay?
were answered.
Oh, yeah, it's fine. My in-laws lost a wallet.
Oh, okay.
And they thought it was at our house, but my wife was already in bed asleep and not answering her phone.
We woke her up.
So
way to wake her up, Sean.
Well, I'm going to just tell you the wonders of technology, how I accomplished this.
Please, because what? Real quick tease to tonight's multimedia segment is technology we're looking forward to.
Sometimes it works. So the cameras couldn't pick her up at home, couldn't get her to answer on there, but my son was still laying in bed awake, which at 9 o'clock I figured he still would be. So I dropped in on their Alexa.
Yep.
And told him to go downstairs and wake his mom up.
There it is.
So he went downstairs and woke her up, and now she sees the barrage of text messages from her parents.
Nice.
And she's taking care of it.
But Amelia's okay?
Yeah, it wasn't
fine?
like anybody. It's just literally my father-in-law was freaking out because my mother-in-law lost her wallet again.
Oh, no. Oh,
this isn't the first time this has happened.
Uh-oh.
And she thinks she left it
Calling
at our house.
Out.
So we're hoping she can find it at the house.
Okay, well, Amelia, after you find the wallet, sleep tight.
We hope you get a good night's rest.
Yeah.
Yep. And hey, Sawyer, get in bed.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
Well, if he's watching this, then he's not in bed. He's in trouble.
It is weird because I do that drop-in feature is pretty sweet. I've never done it.
You just drop in on your family, like I'm watching you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like I've got cameras, so I can see that, and I can hear from those if something like if I want to drop in and see it. But then the HomePod that I have is in my bedroom, and there should be any noise coming from in there.
Yeah.
Except for the few peeps that I have underneath the floorboard. They make noises occasionally. But it's like, I mean, it's crazy that you could just drop in just to one, hear sound, but also communicate like an intercom.
Yeah.
That's
and I know
cool.
he was up because I was just I dropped in and I was listening, and then I just said Sawyer, and he goes, "What?" Because when you drop in, it dings on their end,
Yes.
and lights up green.
So he wasn't going to respond.
And they listen to Disney music at bedtime, so it probably shut the music off and went ding, 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 or whatever, and he was like, "Oh God, here's Dad." Like, so because we use it like an intercom.
What I
system
think is
in the
funny
house.
is he was waiting. He didn't say anything. Like he knew you dropped in, but he was like, maybe he's not.
Yeah.
He's not trying to get a hold of me.
He's grounded right now from
Oh.
electronics and TV for some stuff that happened at school, and so he might have been sneaking in bed with a Nintendo or something.
You think he quickly threw it under his pillow?
He probably
to try
did.
to
As soon as he
mute
heard
the
that
sound?
dong dong, he probably went under the.
He's like, Dad, got
And then he was sitting there quiet.
Oh.
But yeah,
He's like, got away with it.
yep. Technology does save the day
He'd
sometimes.
be like, "Hey, I went down and woke up Mom. Can I get an
Yeah.
hour? Can I
Yeah,
get an
it's
hour?"
pretty.
of
It's
tech?"
early for her to go to bed, but with the hours that she's been working and with me gone, as soon as the kids go to bed, she usually
She's
goes
out.
and lays down.
I
Yeah,
don't get it.
So-
Hardworking woman. Keeping it alive out there. The Sebastian household. That's right.
All right,
We'll
but
make-
we're good.
We're good. Everything's great.
Everything's great.
We do have a great show. We only have one review this week because it doubled.
It did.
It's
I don't
the
have
new
any,
release.
We cheated.
Oh, you don't have any?
I don't
No,
have
it's
any.
dead.
Oh, is it completely dead?
It just says that it's got
No,
the
it's
little
got
play
the little
emblem on it.
It's got the little emblem, but
Oh,
yeah.
I know what it is.
yeah.
They're not loaded up.
And I don't think it's going to get fixed today.
Oh,
my God!
This
he
was
did this on
not
purpose.
sabotage.
He did it on purpose.
no, I hate yous.
Are you Palestinian?
Whoa! I wasn't trying to nuke
Yeah.
the sound bar.
Maybe
okay?
maybe I wanted to hate a few things that deserved it.
No, here's the thing. Because if you all notice, nobody else on camera
It's
does.
not working.
There's a new little device right here.
Oh, what is that?
It's to convert. This is.
Ooh,
I'm
here we
gonna
go.
rant for a sec.
Go ahead, go rant.
Because later we've talked about the banes
It's
of
like
technology.
instead of a second review, we'll just have this rant.
That's
Yeah.
right. And we've talked about like the things that are scary about technology, like AI and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make multimedia about what are we looking forward to with forward tech. Well, one thing I'm not looking forward to is every time Apple has an update.
Yeah.
And so I've been on two Mac OSs ago, like 2 versions behind, which is just heresy in the Apple world, the Apple ecosystem. You got to be on the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
But I had to stick with it because it was the only way that our secondary monitor here, which plays our wonderful graphics and video out of, it had to play out in the same, I'm going to get a little nerdy, frames per second or hertz that the rest of our cameras play out in. So
Yeah.
it's 60 hertz or 5994 to get real technical. And if this box that I'm switching from does not have that signal going into it, it won't show it up on on the kit. It won't show it as a source that I can take.
Okay.
So I had to buy this special box because Apple, in their infinite wisdom, decided to take the 60 hertz that it was displaying out of the same exact computer on an older OS. It was playing and displaying perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
You update, and now that option's no longer available. And it's been like this for 2 different OSs.
Okay.
2 major releases. They've not fixed it. And I finally bit the bullet and I was like, look, I'm going to update my Mac because I want it updated. And I'm going to buy this stupid little device that I know will change the frequency of the signal that I'm sending to it to the correct one that I need so that we can display it and put it out here.
All because
I
Apple
wanted to
they
yeah.
decided you don't need it. You
Apple-
don't need
yep.
it, Brandon.
Apple decided to just change things and not fix their problems, as they constantly do.
So
and
it's
I
only a
continue to
problem for
buy
you.
in. It is. It is. It's a very minute problem. Not everybody is trying to play an output of their computer at a certain,
Right.
frequency.
I get it, but still, it's
But
it is
but
a
it's
dumb-
annoying.
The fact
it's a
that
dumb
it
thing.
used
And
to be an option,
older,
yes.
yeah,
and they
older
changed
OS
it.
used it.
And there's third-party software that does that too.
I tried it. Does not work. It did not work. I bought one for $15, and I put it on there, and the only options they were giving me for the refresh rate of the monitor
Yeah.
was the same options that were in
That
the
were
Apple
on the-
one.
okay.
It was ridiculous. So I finally was just like, screw it. I'm
Apple's got
buying
it
this.
on lockdown. Yeah.
So there's good and bad with technology.
With Apple, you get whatever they want you to have.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I would hit the I hate you button right now, but I don't have it.
So that was.
Why do you
that-
have a lighter out?
I don't. It was the one I
Oh
was
my
using at
gosh,
Brian's,
he's a pyro.
and I just brought it in here and set it on my iPad.
down the
And I've
house.
never put it in my pocket.
Halloween has just brought out the darkness in all
It's
of
a
us.
Speedway lighter too.
Oh, it is. Don't light that mic.
Oh, man.
No, I got it. I got it up here. I'm not gonna. It's not near the mesh. Yeah.
Man, that
He'll come back and it's just
Yeah.
It's like
the mesh is down here.
Uncle Lewis in the tree in Christmas Vacation. My tree.
the blessing.
Blessing.
But no, we do have a great show. The reason the soundbar is not working is because I did an OS update, and of course it broke that too.
It's
and
not
I didn't think to check
working.
it. I didn't think to check it. So we're not going to have it tonight.
It's okay.
because I can't do the show.
We
right
do have
now.
a review, though.
Yeah,
We do.
It's
We do.
9:10. Let's.
Oh yeah, Saw 10. It's the one movie we reviewed. It covers the new release and the torture porn that we've been discussing.
It's
all
both.
month.
It's both.
At
Yes,
the
it
same
is.
exact time.
Yep. So here is our review of Saw 10.
If it's Halloween, it must be... Wait a minute. Didn't we already do this? That's right. Week 2 of our Halloween quote-unquote torture porn reviews continues. Last week, we started with the original Saw. And with the 10th entry in the franchise in theaters, we've decided we'd give our thoughts on where the franchise that helped launch this style of horror has landed. Bringing back Tobin Bell as John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, after the shortcomings of attempted spin-off Spiral, Saw 10 picks up sometime after the first movie, but prior to any subsequent sequels. John has recently received the news that all treatment options for his cancer diagnosis have been exhausted, and he only has months left to live. When running into a fellow member of a cancer support group, Kramer is told about an experimental cancer treatment being done by the daughter of a renowned Norwegian doctor, ostracized by big pharmaceutical companies. Looking further into the matter in hope of curing his own incurable disease, leads John down a path of having to again shell out his grisly form of reformation, teaching those who would devalue life by crushing hope a Jigsaw-style lesson. Saw 10 is a return to the main storyline involving Bell's Jigsaw, after Spiral attempted to put the focus of the franchise on a new copycat killer. After an abysmal performance at the box office, longtime franchise mainstay Kevin Grudert, who has been an editor on every movie and had previously directed the 6th and 7th films in the franchise, steps back into the director's chair to deliver what just may be the best film in the series. Delivering on what fans love most about the movies, Tobin Bell as Jigsaw. Choosing to make John Kramer the main character of the story, an anti-hero protagonist taking down some truly despicable people, breathes some fresh life into the series, while still exploring moral ambiguity and a more fascinating look on morality, the preciousness of life, and more specific to this film, the importance of hope. The movie isn't the deepest take on these themes, but does give an honest attempt at creating commentary on them. John, while the protagonist of this film, is never painted as a moral hero, though the movie does a great job of convincing you to root for him. With some genuine character development and more plot than any Saw film has ever attempted, Saw 10 adds depth to the series that helps elevate earlier sequels such as Saw 2 and 3, and bringing a better understanding to not just Kramer's philosophy, but some insight into the emotional state and motivations of his apprentice Amanda as well, played by a returning Shawnee Smith. No Saw film is without convoluted traps and plot twists, of course, and Saw 10 delivers on this as well, with traps just as gruesome and gory as previous entries to keep the torture porn fans happy. The traps serve more purpose, however, than just shock value, serving the overall story rather than the story serving the traps, as in past movies. And just like every film before it, Saw 10 has some twists and turns with a big reveal at the finale. But rather than an over-the-top, convoluted twist, Saw 10 offers something more subtle that again serves the overall themes. And while the twists are a bit more predictable this time around, this is mainly due to them being well done and story-driven rather than an over-the-top surprise out of left field. Saw 10 isn't the best horror film put to script, but compared to its predecessors, is almost a masterpiece, showcasing what the franchise has always had to offer when it actually attempts to explore the themes the series has always claimed to be about, and when it puts its most intriguing character front and center. I give Saw 10 3 out of 4 stars.
No way. Wait a second.
I know, it's
Saw
weird.
1 last week.
It's weird.
3 out of 4.
I know.
And you admitted at the end of that review that it was more of a guilty pleasure.
It was a 2.5.
Right.
Yeah.
But because you loved it so much.
Yeah.
And it's you got a fondness for
Yeah.
it. But now we're on Saw
Wow.
10.
Yeah.
which is actually Saw 2.5.
Yeah.
2.5.
Or 1.5.
1.5.
1.5.
It's a midquel, as the internet
That's
has
right.
dubbed it.
I like these new terms.
I know.
Prequel, midquel. Like we're just
Requels.
Requels.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to come up with
You gotta
some kind of way to
do
describe it.
Yeah.
But no, Saw 10, I completely agree. It was a pleasant surprise.
I was surprised that this actually had a plot, whereas most Saw it
Yeah.
probably had the most plot of any Saw movie ever made. So, and it was a vast improvement over Spiral, in my opinion.
Oh, gosh,
yeah.
So, I just I think it was a smart move to focus on Tobin Bell, because he's kind of the aspect most people were drawn to with the originals anyways. So kind of making him the protagonist of the film was interesting, and how they go about doing that, because he's not a good person. Like, he may be the protagonist of the film, but it's not like he's a hero. He's not a moral. Like, I mean, what he's doing are for his own twisted morals that you can kind of understand, even if you don't agree with them. But I do like that. I don't think they tried to paint him as necessarily a good person, while still giving him opposition that I think is kind of like, okay, do these people necessarily deserve to die for their crimes, like judge, jury, executioner? Maybe not, but at least they were some pretty scummy people that you could be like, okay, I'm not saying they deserve to die, but you understand.
And also
like,
the fine line.
you know
with
what you're
Jigsaw,
going into a Saw movie for, anyways.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but the fine line with Jigsaw has been the whole Dexter dilemma, which is these are bad people that don't deserve to live, but deserve a second chance, quote unquote, I guess, is the way to look at it. And so
he makes
gives
them
them
appreciate their life.
right.
Yeah.
So it's the idea that they can survive if they really have the will to live.
Yeah,
if
you
they
have the
don't
will
mind
to-
missing limbs.
Yeah, exactly. It's
And
gonna
I
it's
mean,
gonna be a cost.
It's not, obviously, I don't agree with that mindset. It's very flawed, but I mean, if you're a crazy psychopath thinking you're doing good in the world, I guess there's some logic there.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, as far as the twisted dilemma or moral, culpability that he faces, I would agree that no, I'm not vouching for Jigsaw to take the matters into his own hands. But when you see what they do to him in this film, and the overarching story that you know throughout the franchise, this is by far the best film that puts it into perspective, you wanting to be on his side. And I think the other movies don't do as great a job of that, or at least they're not as well-rounded as this one is in terms of you getting to the point.
There's not really character development in most of the others, whereas this one, like I said, it's not that this is, again, I'm not trying to make it sound like this is like a masterpiece of a movie. It's not either. It might be a masterpiece for a Saw movie, but that's a that's a different thing from being like really well made. I mean, it's competently made, and I just for Saw franchise, I already have as already a guilty pleasure of mine. I thought it was the best done out of most of them.
Agreed. Yeah. Sean, what about you?
I was at 2.
Okay.
Wow. I liked the movie because I thought it was well done compared to the other films. And yes, it did have a plot. The issues that I had with the film were the kind of the opposite of what you said, though. I felt like the film does try to make you feel sorry for Jigsaw. And I don't feel sorry for him. And it's like, I understand what those people did to him was heinous. He was already going to die. What they did to him didn't cost him his life. It didn't cost him any physical harm at all, because they never really even operated on him. I felt like...
Cost him financially.
Financially, yeah.
100,000, was it? I forget whether he had to...
I think it was like 50 or something.
Well, I think it was the trend.
I just can't remember.
Also, the trend of all the people they had done it to and scammed to.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Again,
So-
that doesn't mean you deserve a death sentence.
But that's how they justify
But yeah,
it.
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. And I just had like the issues with the morality of it was I thought like it contradicted itself at times, because he was hell bent on giving these people like a chance, and you can tell that it's like, well, number one, like most of his puzzles, the chances of them actually getting out of it are 2%, maybe at best. And so it's not like he really does want them to grow from their experience, because their chances of actually surviving the experience is zilch. But then on top of that, it's like the little boy shows up and he's an innocent. So never mind that he just saw all these people die and you kill them, which would make me think you probably shouldn't let that kid live. But again, it's like,
You mean like, he has their secrets? Or
yeah,
something?
yeah. But then there was also with what's her name, Amanda? Is that her name?
Yeah.
there were moments with her in the other movies where I feel like she's just as I feel like she's more bloodthirsty
She is,
than
yeah.
he is.
She's supposed to
But
be.
in this movie, she wasn't. In this movie, she acted like she felt bad about what she was doing
Just
at
the
times.
one because she was
Right.
also a drug addict, and I like that because it played with her character.
Well, you could say she took pity on that person, but I mean, I felt like the movie tried to take pity on Jigsaw, and I'm like, no. If this is 1.5, then he's already done the events of the first movie, which are absolutely inexcusable. I don't care if you got cancer. I don't care what's going on in your life.
Well, and actually,
I agree with that.
That's what
I
I
just
told.
felt like it.
I told Keith. I said it kind of makes sense within the juxtaposition of the first movie because the guy that ends up in the the bathroom is the doctor who kind of makes fun as like, oh, he's a lost cause, and that's the reason he goes after him initially. But it is interesting because I thought the scale at which, when you consider this is 1.5, at which it escalates in terms of his vitriol towards people or even the traps in terms of their sophistication. Not to say that he didn't have that. I mean, again, I think they cover the groundwork in a good enough detail throughout this film that this is a minor gripe and a minor nitpick. But it is funny that you go from the intricacies, or the intricacies are so vastly different from the first film to this one. In terms of how they're plotted out, and how, literally in the bathroom, it's them chained up to old nasty metal rusted pipes, and they have a saw to saw through their leg. And that's if they really you have the whole tape player. I told Keith, I said, after watching the first one again last week, after a long time, I was like, I really forgot how much backstory there is and how little there is in terms of the traps that they focus on. That it's really not any trap at all. It's just them chained to a rusty pipe.
Some of the smaller flashbacks.
The flashbacks are
right.
And I appreciate that about the first one because the later movies focus on the traps because that's when it becomes more of a gore fest and less story.
And there is that scene. I was gonna say even the flashbacks in the first one do allude to his intricacy with the traps. Or not the intricacy, but his ability to get creative with how he.
The fact that he's an engineer or whatever.
And I will say it was like his moniker of being Jigsaw definitely holds over from the first movie into this one. And to me, there wasn't such a creative leap that I thought it was too. Unbelievable. But it was crazy to me just because of how many films there've been to see this one. And even the kind of opening trap that you get in the beginning of this, for it to have been so vivid in the way you've seen the others, but for it to be just like a glimpse of that's what I could do. But it's just in his head. I thought that was good. Because I thought, oh, well, maybe
that's probably one of the most creative things they've done in a long time.
Yes, which is it's insane. And that it took this long to make that an actual good Saw movie. Because like you said, the first one is kind of a guilty pleasure, and it launched the whole torture porn era. And then also it's kind of like you have to be a little bit sick and twisted, but they still had. It's sad that I yearn for the days where there was a little bit of a moral code that everybody could go along with, that you could recognize that the events that happened in the first movie are twisted and awful and terrible, but yet there was still this moral underbed that needed to happen or needed to exist for you to even go along with even being... for you yourself to sit there in the theater and think, okay, is it okay that I'm watching this, or am I just glorifying?
I think it's fine to find characters like that compelling as long as the film, like Breaking Bad. Walter White is a compelling character. You want to see what he does next. But I think Breaking Bad does an excellent job of showing you that Walter White is not someone to idolize. You're not supposed to look up to him and think,
well, there's that.
He's such a genius.
Yeah, but it also shows the slow fade of him becoming the monster that he becomes. Whereas with Saw, it's like,
well, you already plopped into it with him.
You're just thrusted into this guy that.
And ultimately, that is what I liked about this film, though, is it gives you a little. I agree. It's not I wouldn't take the leap he does. In terms
obviously.
Right, but I do think it gives enough of a. Especially this one felt the most personal because it wasn't just who he swindled, but when he realized he had got taken advantage of. And then it was that moral reasoning of the Batman figure of how many other people have been harmed by these people. And I'm going to do justice.
I do have a question. Maybe you guys can answer it for me. Because towards the beginning of the film, when they introduced the treatment that he's going for, the guy from his support group says, they meet at the coffee shop or whatever, and he says, like, they cured me. Like, they told me I had 2 or 3 months, and it's been this long, and I'm still alive.
Did you see the end credits?
No.
Yeah, he's in the...
I actually picked up on this. Keith can
in the
attest.
end credits.
There's a scene in the middle of the credits. In the middle of the credits.
Oh, no. Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Well,
because I didn't go to the theater to see it.
Oh, okay.
So
okay, sure. They sent you another screen.
He was in on it. He on the whole scam thing.
Okay, I didn't get that.
He gets his
that
at the
answers
end.
that for me.
I immediately, it was like about halfway through, because I told Keith, I leaned over and I was like, I wonder if that guy was in on it.
Yeah.
Because he's got the
Makes sense
scar,
then.
but I'm like, or did they operate? Because at that point, it was unclear as to whether or not they really did operate on him so he would get a scar.
Yeah.
But then when he takes the bandage off and
there's
realizes
nothing
there's
there.
nothing
there, yeah.
I was like, well, then that guy has to be lying. And then, of course, it doesn't come up till well in the end.
Okay.
And they try to do the bait and switch because they try to use the guy who comes in who is the,
And
the,
I
the
thought that was
twist.
I saw that and I told Brett, because it was funny. I know Brandon, I was like, I bet he's who she called. But then like about halfway through the scene, they did a good enough job where I kind of second guessed myself and was like, oh no, maybe he is innocent. And of course, and you figure it out. But I do think, like I said in the review, it's not that the twists in this were so well done that you don't see them coming. I thought the movie was pretty much most of the stuff I could predict, but I thought it was well written enough that while they weren't surprising, but they were believable, unlike other Saw movies where the twist just comes out of left field and you're like, okay, yeah, that's what we're going for.
Well, he says like it's an unexpected. I'm trying to remember the word he used. I mean, he says like this guy showing up and doing this is unexpected, but yet the entire trap was that room. And everything was to get those two people in that room together.
Well, I thought he was talking about the kid was unexpected.
Yeah, but if the kid and him would have never gotten on that thing with the levers and all, then I feel like the whole trap would have never worked.
It wouldn't have. It was meant for him and Amanda. That's what it seemed to imply, that he thought.
But I mean, the
final scene would be
stuff
him and
that he
her.
had planned. I mean, you'd have to be Nostradamus to predict.
I mean, that's kind of
all
what
of this
they're-
stuff.
They go in one of the other Saw movies, like, because he's talking to like his two apprentices about that, and he's like, when you know people well enough and you're able to predict how they behave, you can kind of bank on. And it's not the best excuse.
I agree.
But yeah,
it's a little bit of a stretch to think they would play in that
well.
But I
yeah.
think that's why I enjoyed when the kid got thrown in there, because I was like, you could
that wasn't
see
part of his plan,
the
yeah.
look on his face was utter shock of, no, this was never supposed to go this way.
So I mean, I get it.
It at least threw you a bone of, you thought you knew how this was going to go, but you don't. And on that note, too, I also think that was the one other scene in the movie where, look, I can get through a lot of the gore.
Oh, yeah.
And already it's like, it's
talking about the waterboarding.
Yeah,
With the blood.
Here's the thing:
they wouldn't have lived.
Where'd
that
they get
long.
all the blood?
Yeah, that was my question. I'm sitting there, I'm like, there's
Hundreds of
gallons
gallons of blood.
And
blood.
it's just like, when you look at the thing, it looks like it's like a 10-gallon like bulb
Yeah.
up there,
Yeah.
and it's just like constantly pouring.
And I'm
out.
like, and also for him to have even gotten these things together in enough time,
Yeah.
I'm just like, did he just slaughter
That's
a
the
crap
other
ton
thing.
of pigs or
well,
something?
it's not just that, but the freaking radiation gun up in the
Yeah.
ceiling. I'm like, come on.
Well,
man,
that one
this
was,
is a
I guess,
stretch.
left
Like,
there because it seemed like he was using where he was operated on. Like he just turned that into a trap. So I assumed the radiation thing was left there.
Yeah, that one-
But
yeah.
him turning it into like a big ass ray gun.
Yeah, it
basically.
doesn't
and it's
hang
like
from the
melting
ceiling.
her skin.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I assumed he hung it up there. But again, like how did this 70-year-old man get this thing
Yeah.
hung from
Well,
the
Amanda.
ceiling? And yeah,
and they had chains.
this
and
70-year-old man
machinery.
and
Yeah.
this 20-pound woman got this.
look,
Yeah, I know.
It
That's
was-
part of Saw. They're all
Yes.
ridiculous like that when it comes to the traps. Other
There
than the
are
first one.
stretches, but I felt like of all the stretches in the movies that they make,
Yeah.
this one's by far the most believable.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
And it's like, if you already, you can make logical steps,
Yeah.
other than the waterboarding one, because I'm like, that's just
The
tons
I think the
blood.
motivation in this one to me was the most believable compared to the other one. I feel like the other, you can make a
Yes.
parody of Saw movies where it's like, you rolled the toothpaste, so you gotta die. It's like some of the things that he kills people over, I'm like, people do this every day.
Right.
Doctors cheat on their wives every day. Come on. I mean, why this guy?
Well, because he was
And-
callous
well,
about treating him.
Doctors do that every day. Are you going to kill them all?
Yeah,
I'm just
don't
like,
be a dick to your patients that's dying. That's what he's
What
saying.
are they saying, though? It's
I
not
would
worth
agree.
killing somebody
I
over.
think
No,
that's,
it's not.
That's the leap the first movie takes.
Get the child rapists and do that to them, but don't do that to the doctor that's cheating
I
on
think
his
this
wife.
one
like,
dude in the second one was a rapist, so he at least got
well,
one.
there you go.
He got one.
I think some of them I'm just like, man, this is not justified at
One
all.
of the movies he does like insurance brokers or something because you know his insurance got for real.
Jake from State Farm's
one
going to
of
lose
his-
his head.
One of his treatments was denied, and so he goes after the insurance people. And I think the fifth or sixth one, it was ridiculous.
And it's not that
funny.
guy's fault. It's his boss's fault.
And you could almost, I guarantee you, line those up with like what was going on
Oh, I guarantee it was
culturally.
political.
Like
Yeah.
Obamacare
Yeah.
Very
or something
political,
was
yeah.
going
Yes.
on.
The next one will
Obamacare.
be about global warming. It'll be like
Yes.
you
Well,
threw
one was about, I
plastic
think-
in the ocean, so you have to die.
I'm waiting for it. You know what's gonna happen.
One of them was about realtors. So yeah, they definitely have been political in the past.
Oh,
so,
Yeah.
It's like,
like,
oh,
it's,
I missed 3 mortgage payments,
Yeah.
and then you defaulted,
th-
so now I'm going to
yes,
kill
it's
them.
about like they were throwing people
Yeah.
out on the streets, so they don't deserve to live.
At least this one was a group of people that worked together to defraud
yeah.
individuals
Well, and honestly-
not just individual people and their sins.
That
This
was-
was a group of people
The scene that
teamed
gave
up.
it away for me about the guy who set it up was him in the cancer patient group. And I was like, at least the motivation was there because it's like, I think anybody, especially in America, we have a soft spot for the underdog, but especially someone who's being taken advantage of. And you know these people who are in their most vulnerable being taken advantage of by this group of thieves, and to be taken off remotely and be given this false sense of hope only to wither away and die because you weren't really healed is like this instance of, oh wow, that's absolutely god awful.
Yeah.
And it's like, while I don't justify his means, I do. It does. It goes back to the Batman dilemma of when do you have to take matters into your own hands? Because one, there's no way to really fight it, or
Yeah.
this vigilante justice is the only ultimate way. And I don't think that this film does a good job of really raising that question.
No,
in
it
the way
doesn't.
the
It
Dark
doesn't
Knight
try
does.
to.
take all of their money
Yeah.
and ruin their lives, but killing them and cutting heads off and making them saw their own legs off. I'm like, this is just stupid. I just
now
didn't-
they know
sick.
better because they're dead.
now they've really learned their lesson.
Hey,
Yeah.
the one girl, she'll have a deformed. Well, she was gonna have a deformed, radiated face, but she was gonna live.
Yeah, she would have
They
lived.
would have let her go.
He was going to take her
He
to the
says,
doctor.
take her to the hospital.
Yeah.
He's
I'm like, how do you
serious about letting
explain
them
that
live. Well, they just
Yeah.
drop them off and like, well, we hope that.
Well, what
somebody
happened to
treats
her?
them.
Oh, she landed on the sun. she got a little radiation. That's it.
She was just sunbathing too long.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Too much
Mexico.
vitamin D. But overall, it was entertaining, and like you said, Keith, from the get-go, this is by far the most compelling Saw movie. At least from the opening credits to the point of realizing that and I mean, we've kind of spoiled it all over. It's too late for a spoiler warning.
Yeah, at
but
this
from
point,
the
oh
from the
well.
moment you realize he's being taken advantage of, and the wheels start turning of, Jigsaw kicks in.
Yeah.
He was actually at a moment where I think you thought, he's at his wit's end, and he wants to, finally just either succumb to this, and he's downtrodden because he looked forward to the rest of his life, versus no, now I'm motivated to actually get my
He
revenge.
still had work to do, man.
Right,
He-
right.
Yeah.
And I did. I like the kind of cheeky. He's sitting there, and you think at the time she's a good doctor, who's braving the
Such a
front,
nice lady.
and he's sitting there giving an idea, and he's like, I help people, with their problems.
Yeah.
And it's just like the way he
like a
describes
life
it.
coach.
Yeah,
like a life
And
coach.
he says,
Best
yes.
life coach ever.
Right. Well, and that also brings up one other minor nitpick with it, and this will probably be the last thing I say. There was still some bad writing.
Oh, yeah,
there were
for
still
sure.
plenty of lines delivered that were not great. And even one of the other traps too, where the guy's like taking the pipe bombs off his arms. I was like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That was just
Well, once you cut through the muscles, you couldn't even hold the knife.
exactly.
I was
I'm
like,
like,
it's
you're done.
It's done.
But again, it's another trap that he's never meant to get out of.
So, some of that stuff is the charm to me. It's like certain movies, yeah, you definitely need them to be like The Exorcist needs to be like a serious horror movie. Whereas sometimes when you just have these bloody, gory, like pulp horror films. I don't care if they're illogical and campy, as long as they're entertaining. It depends. When they get so ridiculous, like some of the other Saw movies, then I'm just like, okay, I'm done. This is completely stupid.
Wait till we get to Hostel, where it's neither.
Yeah, there's
It's not good at all, and it's just torture porn for gore's sake. And
tasteless. Yeah,
tasteless, awful, close to
I
a
bet the
snuff
new
film.
Exorcist isn't as serious or well thought out as the original either. So
Well, and that one's going to be our new release review for next week. We're reviewing The Exorcist Believer, as well as the next torture porn series film in our series, which is Don't Breathe, starring Stephen Lang.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple other notable
They don't
actors.
matter.
I don't know.
Stephen Lang's the only one that matters.
They don't matter. They don't matter.
Pandora.
I
love me some Stephen Lang.
Yeah.
Jujubee.
That's all we know is him from Avatar. Nothing else.
But hopefully this will turn my opinion around on him.
We'll see.
Well, you thought it did better in Avatar 2.
Avatar turd.
Avatar
turd. It already did. It did. It already turned my opinion around.
Well, I'm looking forward to that more than The Exorcist. I just wish David Gordon Green would just go back to making comedies, because his horror.
Maybe this will be a comedy.
Well, I mean, Halloween Kills
funny,
and
it'll make your head spin.
That was good. That was
That's
good.
awesome.
Absolutely, for all the worst reasons, I guarantee you
I
that'll
told
be the case.
Brandon, I didn't know this. He's doing the exact same thing with the Exorcist movies that he did with Halloween. Like, he's doing a trilogy. And I'm like, who the heck greenlit
Wow.
that Exorcist trilogy? Like,
There was two
prequel?
originals,
There
wasn't
were,
there?
but
Yeah.
this one's just like Halloween. This is gonna
I thought
ignore
there were
all the
three.
sequels.
I thought there were three to the original. There were
Exorcist, yeah,
there's three.
was
Oh,
there
there's
three
sequels.
originals?
Yeah,
There was three.
There were three Exorcist movies.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought there was just two.
But these,
cool.
just like his 2018 Halloween, like ignores all the sequels and is a direct sequel to the original.
Yeah.
That's what these are supposed to be. And I'm just like,
Yay.
why does Exorcist doesn't need
Exactly.
sequels? Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a series. It's
Well,
not that type of horror movie.
It will feel the same way when they try to remake The Lord of the Rings. You just wait.
Yeah, that will happen. I
It's
agree.
gonna be
I didn't
untouchable,
think
but
that would
they'll
ever
try to
happen,
touch
but
it.
I'm pretty sure it will. At
And
some
The
point.
Exorcist is one of those untouchable films. And I told Keith, I can't remember if I told on the show or in private, I was like, the one thing about The Exorcist is, and what makes it untouchable, is that it was actually released at a time when people truly believed in.
Oh, they took it seriously.
They took exactly. This was not something to be trifled with. And I hate to say it, but when you have Little Nas X dancing around on stage with the devil,
They've seen the
acting
devil.
like exactly. They are demonic.
Yeah, a little girl with her head spinning. That's nothing.
Right. I mean, it's like when you can't actually confront evil.
Who's the other one?
And know that it's real.
Smith that did the.
Oh, Sam Smith.
Sam Smith
Yeah,
did
did
it.
like
Yes.
the circle or whatever.
Demonic,
Satanic
satanic
It's
circle.
like
thing, yeah.
when you just mock it, it's like, I mean, again, it goes back to that line from The Usual Suspects.
And I have a
of
feeling
the greatest lie the devil ever told was convincing people that he wasn't real.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm sorry, but that's the era we live in. We embrace it and make fun of it instead of actually believing in it being real.
I feel like this movie's going to try to be edgy and shocking, and it's just not. It's like, look how scary. And I'm like, no,
because
it's not going to be.
you can tell from the trailers and the director. I mean, we're already bashing it. We haven't even
We haven't
reviewed it. So stay tuned next week.
You just watch it.
We'll watch it, review
Didn't
it.
mean to go on a tangent.
All right, let's get into our headlines for this week. That's right. Our top stories coming out of the gate.
There's some interesting stories
Yeah, Sean sent us this one.
in the headlines.
Shocker.
Shocker.
Story is secondary in Hollywood? No. Well, that's what an actress who's wanting to retire very soon here.
Iconic actress.
Yeah,
in
that's
that.
what I was
Iconic
gonna say, very
actress.
famous actress.
Jessica Lange.
Jessica Lange says that it's just secondary now. It's all about profits. The elitists just want profits up there in their Hollywood towers of gold.
No.
And they just don't care about the story anymore. Now let's. I want to read a little bit of her quote here from the article that I got pulled up from the Hollywood Reporter, and she is quoted as saying, "Sorry, I got to find it. I don't think I'll do this much longer. Creativity is secondary now, next to corporate profits. I don't know if it's because the filmmakers think that they can't hold the attention of the audience anymore." But that's the kind of filmmaking that drives me crazy. And in particular there, she's talking about just regular drawn-out shots that draw in emotion. So let's talk about it because, well, I think it's important to shine a light on this. I think it's much more than just what she is staking this claim to, oh, it's because it's all about profits. Well, it's kind of always been about profits. I mean, since the early days of Hollywood.
I mean, if they're not making
realized,
money, they're not making movies.
Right.
Right.
And we've talked about on the show plenty of times about how some of the big budget blockbusters are what funds the independent artistry. And yeah, you have your art house independent studios like A24 or Blumhouse. But when it really comes down to it, you have to have some of these bigger studios release the smaller films based on the backs of the big players in the game. I mean, let's think about what the current situation is that we're in with regard to the writer's strike that just ended officially today. And, it's been ratified. The agreement's been ratified for another 3 years. So we'll see again in 3 years.
3 years.
But then you also have the SAG strike still going on. And the issue is really about the bigger releases that have been pushed back. Because it's the tentpole releases that ultimately fund all of the other films that you may be able to take a risk on.
Yeah.
Now, do I agree with her that a lot of times that foresight is not really looked into? Absolutely. A lot of studios aren't thinking about that. They're thinking of their bottom dollar, especially when you have strikes that are negotiating new rates for the success of certain films. Well, the problem is when the whole industry is a risk when you're making films that are kind of uncharted territory, or when you're resting on things that may be risky to the studio and they don't know if it's going to turn out well. But now, if it does turn out well, they've got to pay out bigger payouts for the actors and the writers.
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
I think that's part of the bigger problem is it's like you said. I mean, they always need the profit. It's always been about profit. But I do agree with as far as like them not taking risk or as far as going for the easy money. It's like, okay, we know Marvel, is an easy buck. We know this is an easy buck. They don't take risk anymore. They go for the lowest demographic they can reach. It's like this is the most widespread. And I do, and because reading her thing about the editing, like how she mentions like the style of frantic editing, and they don't believe like they can hold an audience attention, they don't let a scene breathe. And I do agree with that. That's one thing that I hate now is that emotional scenes don't rest. It's quick pace on from one action scene to the next, because again they do treat audiences like we're stupid.
It's formulaic.
They've said as much. They've multiple people from we mentioned the. Producer for The Witcher, and then there was a recent one, I don't remember who we just talked about a few weeks ago, said audiences were stupid.
I think it was for not Star Wars.
It had to do with Rotten Tomatoes, didn't it? When they were saying that audiences are, I don't remember who had said it, but in relation to Rotten Tomatoes, they had talked about how audiences are stupid, so we have to tell them what to like. And I'm just like, no, we're not stupid. Yeah. It's like, but you're not giving us anything better.
Yeah. I mean, I think she understands, like you said, she's been in the industry for a long flipping time. So she understands that profits are important. But I like her other quote where she talks about the emphasis becomes not on the art or the art of storytelling, it becomes about satisfying your stockholders. Mm-hmm. That's something that ultimately diminishes the artist and the art of filmmaking. So that's, to me, one of the things that pops into mind just kind of recently is the whole Warner Brothers thing with the Snyderverse. Mm-hmm. And I'm not defending Zack Snyder. I know you guys know that I like him, but it's like he had a vision for his films, and they continuously cut his films down to size, and because they're thinking about audiences and them sitting there, they're thinking about the what's going to make the most money, and they didn't let him put his vision forward. And now, later you have these cuts, and Ayer wants to have an Ayer cut, and they're they're blaming the production houses on trimming their art down to where it's not the painting or the masterpiece that they had envisioned. It's just a jumbled mess of what the stockholders think that audiences want or that they want to see. And I think that's kind of what she's going for, more than just saying, oh, it's all about the money and not about this or that. I think she understands that, but it's coming from, which I will say against her. Here's a woman that was in one of her biggest movies was the 1980s King Kong movie, which was not a good movie. It was a spectacle because of the King Kong size and all of this stuff, and her having this relationship with an ape. And hey,
an underrated movie Peter Jackson's King
Jeff,
Kong.
he did it right.
Yeah.
He did it right. But you had Jeff Bridges was in the King Kong movie that she was in.
There's the 70s King Kong.
Yeah, it's not great at all, but it's like, so she's come from a movie that what I would say was a mindless blockbuster at the time, but then she's also starred in Tootsie and other movies.
Have benefited from this. I mean, I agree with her that this is the problem we have harped on with regard to Disney and Marvel, is the Infinity Saga was great, and we were excited and looking forward to what was next. They have fumbled the ball at every single possession, and it's every single time a new movie comes out, we're immediately we're now we've seen plenty that we don't need to see anymore. It's not only become formulaic, it's become lazy. It's become haphazard. The thing that was unique about the Infinity Saga was because it was a grandiose, huge expanse of films that one connected to the other, but it had never been done on that scale before. Yeah, we've seen trilogies. Yeah, we've seen the Harry Potter films where they actually kind of aged throughout them, but nothing had been done to the degree in which you had these individual movies that had a real deep focus on the central character at hand and then combined to come together to tell one big story.
Yeah.
Every couple years. And that was something that was unique for the time. And of course, now we've seen them saying, well, if it's sell, I mean, look at Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
We've mocked it recently because it's a franchise that's stale and it hasn't been original for not six, that's a little too much. 3 or 4 iterations. Honestly, since after Furious 7, probably could have ended it there, and even that was probably one too many, but you sent off Paul Walker, and it's like, okay, we could have been done.
Yeah.
But no, and they could easily say, well, look at all the money we've made and the people who keep coming back to the theater. Yes, and in that regard, I'll concede to her point. Absolutely.
I don't know how those keep getting made, but people keep watching them.
Yeah.
You could argue Saw. Yeah. I mean, Saw is a franchise now. It's 10 movies in. It started out as an indie flick. People kept coming back and giving more, and they were like, I mean, Paranormal Activity tried to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, horror films are notorious for this.
Well, yeah, because they're typically low budget and higher profit.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing. You look at any of the slasher flicks from the 80s, and we were just talking about this earlier. It's like you have Freddy and Jason, and it's like when you watch those movies, it's like there's no production value there.
Oh, no.
You have a bunch of no-name actors. It's well before Kevin Bacon was known in the first Friday the 13th, and yet almost every single
Johnny
other
Depp
person,
Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah.
almost all the other people and players in the movie completely gone. You don't even hear from them.
Yep.
That's their one claim to fame. And yet, while I can sit here and say, hey, when you look at them on an individual atomistic level, okay, it makes sense. You need a paycheck. You need to make another movie. And some of these people kind of get caught in a creative funk. One here or there is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you see a whole industry chase after this model that we've seen since Marvel became a thing, whether it was everything's got to be a universe.
Everybody was trying to make a shared universe. They got ridiculous. You had the whole Godzilla universe. Universal wanted their Frankenstein and Dracula universe. And then DC, which made sense against Marvel, but still, everybody tried that, and I don't understand.
Well, I feel like there's got to be room for the mindless blockbusters that people are going to turn out to watch. They're going to make a lot of money, and I think some of those films, like The Meg, for instance, that's one of those films where when they sat down to storyboard that movie or to pitch that to a production company, they were like, this is going to be a crap movie, but it's going to look good. It's going to be over the top, and people are going to love it. Yeah, it's going to be fun. But what bothers me is when they sit down to say, okay, we're going to remake Ben-Hur, and they do what they did with The Meg. They do something. It's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna phone it in.
Yeah.
We're just gonna make it lackluster. We're gonna take Jesus out of it because he's not part of the story, even though it's called A Tale of the Christ.
Right.
And it's like so they water everything down and make the lazy version of an epic movie that we remember. That's what pisses me off. Same thing with Lord of the Rings. If you're going to spend billions of dollars and follow up what Peter Jackson made, and then you give us the freaking Rings of Pooh, like that you call it, I'm like, that's one of those things where that's not one of those things you're supposed to make the mindless blockbuster out of. Like I want you to give it.
Well, and even then, it's like a lot of times they don't have that intention.
but there's a lot of times where you can clearly see, okay, you're banking off the name. That's all it is. You're literally banking off the success of that. There's a beloved franchise here that people are going to come back and see, or they're going to give their time and their money. Yeah. And I hate to say it, I think that was the issue ultimately with the Snyderverse. Is not that Snyder didn't have his vision, but eventually it was, okay, we're beholden to the Snyder fanatics, so any story we get, we're gonna have to understand and like it his way. And that's not a knock against Snyder. He had his own style. That was who DC chose to head up their universe at the time. Yeah. And I would, looking back now, based on what we've gotten, again, hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, no.
I thought it was going to be a great thing that Disney freaking bought out Star Wars.
Yep.
And that's just gone to complete shit. Yeah. And it's like nobody's wish. Nobody would have imagined the day they would have thought, oh, let's have George Lucas back.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yet here we are 10 years later, and it's like, please, God, just bring him back in. Please, set it right. Just get rid of Kathleen Kennedy. Let's give it back to George and say everything we've come up in the last few years is done. It's garbage. It's trash. And so you take beloved franchises and you piggyback off with them with cheap crap, like you said, this gimmicky garbage of, oh, we just got to get it out there to get the fans on board, and they're going to eat it up regardless. And it does. It turns into that schlock that people are, it's like the junk food for just consumers, and they're like, well, they'll eat it anyway. Let's just respect the audience.
Many do.
Yeah.
The giant robots beat on each other. Ah! Yay.
Hey, we haven't got Pacific Rim 2 yet.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, we did.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I was reading that interview with Guillermo del Toro today.
Totally forgot about it.
But that's what's funny is like I was literally reading a
that's right.
interview today where like they asked him why he didn't do the sequel, and it's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
But it's probably because he knew that it was like, no, this is a one and done deal.
They didn't rent the stages they needed for filming. He said he kept telling the studios like we have till 5 p.m. to rent these stages, and they didn't do it because they were supposed to film. I think in Scotland or something. So then the studio's like, well, that's okay. We can film in China. He said, you can film in China. He said, I have to move on to my next movie, which was Shape of Water, which wasn't any better.
Oh gosh.
So he didn't come back for the sequel. He was just like, y'all are stupid.
I can only imagine what one of those giant robots would have looked like if they had been the shape of water monster. It's a giant
Just think
robot.
some studio who forgot to rent these stages is responsible for us getting Shape of Water.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
All the more reason Pacific Rim,
Pacific Rim Uprising was better.
Yeah.
So,
but it might have been if he had made it.
I mean, I guess the shocking part of this to me though is not that. I mean, come on. When has this been the case? Especially we've had moments where it's been lulls in the film industry, and you get a bunch of crap that's just pushed out. I mean, Tarantino was talking about this months ago, where he's like, "Look, we're in a creative funk right now. There's a lot of stuff being pumped out that nobody's wanting to watch or see, and it's garbage, and we know it. The audience knows it. That's what I think is funny about for all the people who are saying, just give it to him. The audience doesn't know any better. It's like, no, they do. And because you just hide the ratings on us and don't show us what people are or not watching, then of course we can't tell you unless we just don't tune in. It's you all who are wasting the money. The problem is that you then want to turn around and then blame all of that. That's my issue is when you have Netflix coming out, they don't have to cancel every freaking show they put out there.
Yeah.
The reason they do is because they're not deliberate about what it is they choose. They're throwing crap at the wall to see what sticks, and when they get a good one, they think, oh, well, next couple of years, all the other crap that we're going to put out to see if it sticks.
Yeah.
Or, hey, better yet, we'll just make a spin-off of this. Or we'll turn this one-time thing into a bunch of different things because it's going to keep making us money.
We'll bring back these old series because nostalgia sells. And it's just... It's
lazy. It is.
I think... I agree with Tarantino. I mean, if you look throughout Hollywood's years, there's definitely... You could see different years and decades where like creativity kind of sank. And I mean, we were going through many of the original Best Picture winners and how you'd have good ones, and then some years were just god-awful despite the fact that it won Best Picture. So I agree with him, but I think it's more exacerbated now because you have modern technology where you have internet and streaming, and everybody's trying to fill content and get views, so they're just churning out, well, then like you said, just constant crap.
It does become more about the views and less about the creativity.
Yeah.
It's not like let's do something completely original and new and get views that way. It's let's do something that's trending,
Yes.
so that we can get views.
That's exactly it. That's
Yeah.
all it is. How fast can we jump on the bandwagon of a
Yes.
trend?
Yeah.
And how can we capitalize on it and immediately put it out so that people are just consuming it?
It begs the question to me is like, okay, so Jessica Lange, she's got to be 70 or 80 at least, and I'm like, she's talks in the article about how she's about to get out of this business anyway, and I'm like, would you have said this if you were 40 years old? Would you be saying this?
Right.
If you still had 40 more years of acting, would you be coming out and bashing Hollywood? No, you're doing it now because you're about to retire.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, you're kind of at the end of your
She's
your
70.
golden.
She's 74.
Yeah.
So yeah.
She's
Yeah.
and look, that's not to say you can't be that old and be a good actor.
No,
or actress,
No,
But you're
I'm
right.
just saying
It's like
she's
you're
getting out of the game.
You're sunsetting your career.
Well,
There's
yeah.
other up and comers who want to be known, and that's I think the other sad thing about it is there is a huge wider array of talent out there that is looking to be noticed, and you find those diamonds in the rough or even the hidden gems that you didn't know were there. But there is something to be said about how many people are out there who are, look, it's a whole industry, and granted, I'm not going to knock anybody for taking work that they can get a paycheck from. Absolutely, by all means. If it's your passion, I used to joke around about saying, look, if I was really serious about being an actor or something out in Hollywood, I could go get a freaking job on a daytime soap opera set, and it's not because what they do is easy. It's actually a lot harder than what a lot of
Right.
actors do. But it's a steady gig. You're coming in every day. Your job's going to be there because it's something that keeps going. I was like, if you really love acting, this is something you could do day in and day out, and you get a paycheck for, and then you can even get a fan base grown out of it because there's people who watch soaps and keep up with them, and then you get a cult following that then want you to stay on the show, that ensure your employment. So it's like, hey, if you can put bread on the table and do what you love, isn't that what it's about? Absolutely. So I'm not going to knock that side of it for a lot of the people who are out there saying, hey, I'll be in a commercial ad or I'll be in a short stint on a Netflix show if it means, me getting to do what I love to do.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the creative art as a whole, which I think is what she's ultimately speaking to, absolutely I think it goes to the heart of the matter of what Keith has brought up. When you have all of these different facets of consuming content now, it makes it harder to make something that's not only impactful and meaningful, but something that breaks through all the noise, that actually becomes a cultural phenomenon that is worth having. Because look, you're going to have those cultural phenomenons like Squid Game or Bird Box. I brought it up before. Those are just two that stick out to me because I'm like, those are things that happened within the culture that people started talking about.
They blew up.
Stranger
like, immediately.
Things is
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
It came out and it started seeing popularity and it grew into a cultural phenomenon. And it launched the careers of all those kid actors.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's crazy because when you do have something that latches onto the cultural zeitgeist of the time and becomes so successful that it now is ingrained in, this is something that did break the mold, everybody starts imitating it. Everybody starts to try to capitalize on how can I jump on that success. And even more so now that it's in the pop culture, and two, if we don't do it quick, it's going to fade, and then we're back into, oh no, we got to think of something new. Or we just keep creating the same crap until the next thing breaks through. And it is sad because it overall brings, because there's so much out there, it overall brings the quality of everything else down. Even the ones that break through and are excellent. It just brings everything down to a level of, it's funny that, their argument would be, oh, well, people are too stupid to understand, so let's just give it to them. It's like, in turn, it's a cycle of, no, now you're just making us dumber.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now ultimately what you're putting out there doesn't ask anything of its audience, and it does. It becomes junk food television. And it's like, well, of course you're going to get sick and you're going to get fat and overweight and out of shape if you just eat nothing but fast food every day. But if that's all you have available because, well, that happens to be all that you've learned or been, grown up with, and you didn't teach yourself how to cook, well, then, that's what you're going to be stuck on. And unfortunately, the vicious cycle continues. So granted, she has a point. I think she was kind of sticking with the same old drum that she's been beating probably for years in Hollywood. She's probably a product of Hollywood at this point.
Oh, she's
doubt.
very, very left-leaning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the fact that she pointed to profits and the profit-seeking corporations, it didn't surprise
She doesn't
me.
point out that it's about wokeness and not about creativity
Exactly.
anymore. Yeah,
And that's what I think is
but
interesting.
wokeness sells,
And that kind of
at
plays
least
into. Oh, and no
in
doubt.
their mind it sells.
Yes. Or it's a virtue and a morality that they have
Yeah.
to push no matter what. Because in that regard, yeah, she won't put up there that it's like, I wonder how many millions these companies have lost when you consider the content they've pushed that hasn't been successful. And that's where the woke, go broke comes into play.
I don't
But
believe you.
let's move on to our second headline here,
Which one?
which happens to be that, Spike Lee criticizing Oppenheimer. He's coming out.
I know. I found that funny. I just like Japan and the memes and like, oh, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's just such a ridiculous thing because it's like, okay, you're making a movie that's a biopic of a man, and I get like some of like the initial disappointment in people like when there's not much to like them setting off the atomic bomb because the trailer kind of hypes that up. But then to go one step further, of course, Spike Lee, because everybody has to be a victim. Because that's his shtick.
It is.
That's his shtick.
It is.
No matter what he does, it has to be to highlight someone who's victimized. And he wants to. He wishes Oppenheimer showed what happened to the Japanese. He's like, people got vaporized. He's like, we're aware of that, but the movie, that's not what the movie was about.
Right. It wasn't about the
Dropping
atom
the
bombs.
bombs, yeah.
It's not
It wasn't
called the
about World
atomic
War
bomb.
II. It was
Yeah.
called Oppenheimer. Yeah.
Which means it's about the man.
Well, I think it's
Oppenheimer.
hypocritical of him because here's a guy who made a movie about these soldiers from Vietnam that get back together later. I forgot what the Five Bloods.
That's it.
Duh, Five Bloods.
Yeah,
My
Five
bad.
Bloods, yeah.
So, but in that movie victimizes African Americans who were used in the Vietnam War, to fight for a country that didn't really care about them, but it didn't victimize the Vietnamese. Like, why didn't he put enough stuff in his movie about how
true.
the Vietnamese were killed? And
Some of them were. Yeah. I mean,
Well, because they weren't as low on the victimhood poll as the Five Bloods were.
the Five
the
Bloods.
Five Bloods were.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's like, and it's funny because he even says, "Oh no, this is just like a slight critique." He's like, "This isn't criticism."
Yeah.
And honestly, he's like, if I would trust Nolan if he had anything to say to me about Malcolm X or
Yeah.
Oh, what was the other one? I forgot his other big movie that he name dropped in there. But I find it interesting that
do the right thing.
do the right
Yeah.
thing. It's like, look, nobody asked your opinion. You consider yourself to be a notorious, director that is just, ushered in all of this, brought a lens
He's made
to
movies.
So my question would be: has Nolan ever criticized anyone else's films?
No, because he's too focused on making his own.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think he
exactly.
I mean,
I've really
Tarantino's-
never heard him comment on anybody else's
The
films.
hell, even Scorsese, he's talked about the Marvel thing as a popcorn ride,
Yeah.
or a theme park ride, but he's literally only talked about it in like a 30,000-foot view. He's
Yeah.
not criticizing anybody.
Yeah,
who's-
he's never criticized
never-
any direct director. Yeah, he just the genre as a whole, pretty
Right.
much. And yeah, Nolan, like I've seen Nolan criticize production companies like Warner Brothers when they were releasing straight to streaming rather than theaters during
He
COVID.
criticizes the process.
Yeah, and he criticizes like digital, like not using film over digital and stuff like
but
that.
not another
yeah.
artist's work.
Yeah,
Right.
Because
Yeah.
he's got a thing called class.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Spike Lee doesn't have that.
Right. And I hate to
Yeah.
say it because it's like, look, I'm not saying what Spike Lee said was. I don't want to blow it out of proportion. I don't think it could have been it could have been a passing comment that somebody asked him a question about it specifically, and then
It's like, yo, Spike, you
Right.
see Oppenheimer?
Yo, Spike.
What'd you think of that A-bomb movie? But no,
There wasn't enough A-bomb.
well, and it's kind of interesting because I'm like, I just when he said these people were vaporized, they were radioactive. Like I'm sitting there, I'm like, do you want like Nolan green zombies like on film? Like I just thought it was the way he phrased it. I was like, and you're the reason why it would have been a bad idea if your hands were on this film.
Yeah.
So look, he has his own style of filmmaking. Either you like it or you don't.
Yep.
It's with every director. I just particularly thought, look, I had my own criticisms for Oppenheimer. I still look forward to watching it a second time once it comes out of the theaters
In 4K.
in 4K, absolutely. And that sound is just, I still like the Nolan sound, even though people give him crap. But ultimately, I will say, I just don't really care. It's like Spike Lee. I don't think Spike Lee intellectual drama doesn't match with me. Sorry, that's my own thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. It's like when you see Scorsese criticize Marvel, you listen for a little bit because it's Scorsese. When you see Spike Lee criticize Nolan, I'm just like, okay.
Well,
like,
another thing
it's ridiculous.
that bothers me about some of his comments is it seemed to me like he was trying to put out the idea that Christopher Nolan gets what he wants from production studios, and he doesn't. He has to fight harder for his, because he
Nolan
makes
also
the comment,
delivers profits.
Yeah, he said it's not like he didn't have power. He tells studios what to do.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, so because, well, no, I'm not even going to get into that. Never mind, because you know where I'm going. But it's like, because his skin color is different than you, he tells studios what to do, but they give you such a hard time because you're black. And I'm like, no, it's not anything to do with that. It's not anything to do with you as a filmmaker
and
either.
I hate to say it, but to give him a little credit, it's with his own pedigree. He couldn't make that argument. He's been given free reign over the movies he's made because he is the black director voice in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but that is the case. And it's like, for him to come out and make, I agree with you.
But the comment he's making is definitely in
that vein.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Nolan could have done whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
Why didn't he add this little flavor in there?
Well, we
And
already we know what happened to Japan.
Right.
What we didn't know was the life of Oppenheimer.
Right.
And that's what we got.
It's like, it was the interest, for one, just the title of the movie. I'm going to revisit that. The title of the movie is Oppenheimer. And the idea of the film was to showcase a man's life who eventually made a life-altering decision that changed the course of history.
Yeah.
And that shows the regret that he had for
True.
how it was used. And it's like he knew what he was doing. He knew how it was going to be used.
Right.
It's not
But
like
he still regretted it. And it does a good job of showcasing that.
No doubt.
He's not a monster.
They didn't show the actual event, but it's not like they tried to like paint it with rainbows and unicorns and be like,
not at all.
Oh, that was just the bomb went off and flowers popped out. It's like, no, they showed that he knew what it was going to do.
I will say, and that's where I do give the article a little bit of credit, is it ends with that. I forget what other, and I thought it was a little bit. It was a little bit pretentious how it was worded, but I just want to pull up the article. It was like the very last statement. Oh yeah, and it said Oppenheimer became a summer phenomenon, grossing more than $930 million and counting globally.
Globally.
The 3-hour drama. Actually, no, that isn't right. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong part.
You fool.
Oh, despite his comments on Oppenheimer, Lee made his praise of Nolan clear, telling the Post that he showed Dunkirk to his students. So see, he made it all better. He showed his students Dunkirk. But as far as from another critic who was saying that he actually thought that Oppenheimer did a good job of not showcasing the horrors of Japan because it was the silence of that crowd, or the silence of not showing that moment, that ultimately settled in. The way he says it is so much better, and I've got to find the quote. I'm trying to find it while continuing to host here, and I can't find it.
For shame.
I have it if you...
There you go. Yeah, go ahead.
So it says, however, Oppenheimer does not portray the bombings of their aftermath in Japan, instead largely staying confined to its protagonist's perspective. The omission was a major topic of critical discussion around the film. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Keep going.
With Los Angeles Times critic Justin Chang defending the decision, saying that Nolan treats the attacks as a profound absence and indictment by silence.
Right. Basically saying because he didn't show it, it was because it was his way of showcasing that we're not going to show that atrocity.
It highlights how solemn it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Right. And it's like, I kind of agree.
Yeah.
It was a little pretentious in the way the critic put it, but I kind of agree. I kind of agree with him that it's like, it would have taken away from the rest of the film, and it would have been like, let's just throw this huge event that probably should have a whole movie in and of itself. Let's just throw it in at the end here.
Spike Lee has that way of like making the comments offensive, but then saying no offense after he's already said it.
Yeah.
And it's like, so he says these things to critique someone else's work, and then it's like, oh, but I loved it.
Yeah. I showed Dunkirk to my students.
Nothing but love for it, and it's like, well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. We'll take your word for it.
It's like, you're ugly. No offense.
All right.
I don't mean anything by it.
One final headline. We were just talking about streaming.
Final headline.
The writers end their strike, SAG is hopefully still working behind the scenes, coming up with something that we're going to get. But Netflix is already talking about raising prices. Again, they just did this.
That's because they keep making all this content quantity without quality. And like you said, when only one sticks every now and then, that they think, well, this will fund everything. Well, it can't, because it's only one hit amongst hundreds.
I mean, how many years now is Netflix going on broke?
Yeah,
Operating in the red?
I think the entire time we've done this podcast, for sure, we've talked about how they've operated in the red. So yeah, it's like, well, how do we fund all this garbage we're making?
Yeah.
We'll make you pay for it.
Well, and it's interesting that they switched to obviously cracking down on the password sharing.
Yep.
And then when they saw a boon from that wasn't enough.
Yeah, that's apparently not good enough.
They had 4 tiers. The one that was the $9.99 ad-less tier, but SD, they got rid of completely.
Yep.
Which I get.
So you can only do the ad tier program at $7.99, or it immediately jumps up to the $15.99 One HD screen, or the 4K
The
4
premium
screens
plan.
premium plan at $20 a month. So it's like, what are they even? What price range are they even looking
That's
at?
what I'm saying. Well, you start getting above $20 a month. I'm like,
Oh, I think it'll go up $5.
oh
You think
yeah,
it'll
I think it'll be $25.
And that's ridiculous.
$24.99. Yeah.
And it's like, and you know that's not going to be the final price raise that they're ever going to do. So it's like, when you start getting up that high, it's like, where are we going? 10 years from now, are we going to be paying $30, $40 for Netflix? At this point, it's like, why are we getting rid of cable? It's like, you're just ruining, I think, part of the appeal of streaming.
I completely agree. I think they're doing it. To me, the hard pass on this, and the what gets me more riled up, is how soon.
Yeah.
Because what it tells me is that you're not stable. You're again, going back to the whole, you're doing the same thing with your prices that you do with your content. Let's just throw something at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
And let's see what people are willingly comfortable with until we see a backlash to the point that we'll say, okay, no more. We're done there.
Yep.
We'll draw the line in the sand there. And that just tells me that financially, they're just not, they're not solvent. That there's a problem, that there is an issue internally, that they're bleeding money at such a rate. They've got to try to find a way to make up for it.
To
That's
me-
what the whole password crackdown was about.
Yeah. It was supposed to help fix that problem.
Yes.
I mean, I would be okay with a price hike every 4 or 5 years, because the way I look at it personally is like, in 4 or 5 years, I'm going to make more money than I was 5 years ago. So I can, if they raise it $2 or $3, that's not a problem for me. But when they're doing it every year, or maybe, I mean, because it says they changed the prices last year.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be probably less than 12 months that this new price tier is going to roll out. And that pisses me off. You don't need to raise it twice in a year.
And
that's crazy.
And again, that was just after the password
password sharing crackdown,
and getting rid of another tier.
Yeah.
So it's like, but here's the thing too: is at what point though would you say too much is too much? I mean, a price hike of 50 cents to $1, maybe every so often, isn't terrible.
Yeah.
No.
$5 is steep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge
That's what I'm
increase.
betting on. I'm betting it goes up to 25
And so,
for the
yeah,
premium tier.
I think that's just ridiculous.
And then I think your $15.99 tier will jump up to 20. I mean, I don't.
But then where do you make this ad
I don't
tier?
think. Well, see, that's the thing with the ad tier. I don't understand. I don't think very many people want the ad tier. I think people want a streaming service that offers them something ad free. And I think if you price it right, people will go for the ad free because they don't want to pay. But I think Netflix was banking on making more money off the ads, and if more people subscribe ad free, then they're making less money. They're making $5 more a month off of you, but they're making less money because they can't use the ad. They
they're
can't
having
sell
to
the ads.
supplement the lack of ad revenue that they're getting from people not subscribing.
I don't
to
think
that
people
tier.
want it. Yeah.
But I think I think you're right. But
I
they
agree
also
a
the
little
other
bit.
issue there is that I think they positioned it terribly.
Yeah.
Why would you give people who are paying to watch ads SD?
Yeah, and it was
Like,
one
come
stream,
on.
SD, only one account. You couldn't have profiles or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, so yeah, you make it $6 or $7 a month, and you can watch it on one TV at a time. It's SD. Like, who has an SD TV anymore? I mean, so it's like, I just don't think that was anything people would want. So they force people to go to the higher tier. But if it's ad free, then you're losing all that ad revenue.
I think what happened there, because I don't think it's doing So I think it's doing poorly as far as people willing to pay for not having ads, because they got rid of the other service that was SD but had no ads. And I think what you had there was that people who weren't getting better quality anyways, weren't willing to pay the 15 or 20, decided, well, if I'm getting standard quality anyways, why am I paying for it? And I think those are the people that dropped down to this ad-free service. And I think that's all they got, was the ones that when they got rid of that tier and they were unwilling to pay the 15, they got all the people who just had that ad-free tier down to the ad tier. But I agree. I think nobody else, like anybody who was...
But then you had the $10 tier where you could only have one profile. And then if you had a family member that you were password sharing with and they cracked down on that, I got to be able to have more than one profile. So they just went to the $15 tier instead of paying for an additional password or whatever.
And ultimately what you garnered there was like a whole nother $8 increase.
Yeah, well, you can't pay for another. The only two options that I offered the extra $8 was the 15 or the 20. The $10 one you couldn't even.
Yeah,
you couldn't add.
No.
Okay. It was just ad free.
You can add one additional house with the $15 tier. You can add two additional houses with the $20 tier.
That's okay. That's right.
And that's it. Yeah. So if you have more than two people you want to share with,
it's just very confusing.
It is.
Like really.
Well, and it's fun because Netflix I think has been the worst, but it does make me wonder what's going on with the streaming industry right now, because they're all doing, like, Netflix, Max, Disney, they're all hemorrhaging money. And I'm like, what is going on with your all's business models where not that long ago, like, streaming was the way of the future. Cable was dying, which it still is. I'm not saying streaming's dying by any means, but to see
it shows they haven't mastered it.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that there's all this scrambling and people flock to streaming because it was cheap and easy, and now because they're not making the profit margins they want, which I think is more due to their own errors than subscribers, they're jacking up the prices on subscribers and cracking down on password sharing. And my line of thought is maybe you all need to look at what you're spending all this money on, this garbage that you're blowing money on, rather than forcing your loyal customers to pay more money.
And there's the garbage, and then but then there's also the big budget stuff they do. Like for Netflix, if you're looking at The Witcher, which is one of the most expensive things that they've taken on, I'm like, there's no way they're making enough money off subscribers to bankroll a show like The Witcher.
With everything else.
Yeah, well, HBO is making a lot of money, so they can afford Game of Thrones and House of Dragons.
Well, and they also have a little bit of a wider variety in which they can reach people, whether it's packages that are bundled in with cable subscribers, whether it is HBO Max, just the subscription alone to that service.
Yeah.
But I also think it's interesting, and they're owned by a bigger parent company. I think that's why you're seeing even interesting little deals going on the side, whether it be, Apple TV wanting to pick up live sports with baseball, or even I know Disney now is thinking about that with their ESPN they already own. How can we incorporate live streaming services like sports onto the platform to get people here? Because you have to start cannibalizing the things that people do go to other services for, like cable or even over-the-air TV. How do we get that on our platform where it's exclusive? But I also think it's a problem as well when it comes to the creative content of not just spending all this money on the big budget stuff, but it's also the idea that it's like you all have put yourself into this corner. You've now raised the expectations of what people are being offered on streaming. So if you do backtrack, you've now made it to where I expect a certain amount of new content every so often, every time I get on Netflix, because I'm paying this what is a premium price. And now when you're telling me you're going to cut back on content, that ain't going to make me happy as a customer. Or even if I start slowly seeing the same thing cycle through because, whether or not I've watched it, if I just flip through and I see that either stuff's being taken away...
Yeah, removing things takes me off more than anything.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
With Netflix, I get because they
just put everything on there. Successful or not.
A lot of Netflix stuff is licensing. Like, their originals at least all stay. I'll give Netflix that. They don't pull anything that they own off, unlike Max and Disney has done. But, of course, I understand anything licensed they have to get rid of. But this stuff like Max, like we saw tonight, Max has licensed Dune out to Netflix, which they own. And I'm like... I still don't, like, other than they're hemorrhaging money and they're just trying to get as much money as possible. But it's like, why license something you own out to another streaming service when that should be used as to draw subscribers into your own service?
No, right. I agree. And the only thing I can think there is the same thing that Disney does with the Vault.
Yeah.
And that they ultimately do when it comes to things that they offer on their platform, or they'll pull it off for a while to try to boost the sales of what somebody's going to go out and buy, because they've got that itch and they got to scratch it. And then boom, in 2 or 3 months, it's back on there again.
Yeah.
Well, that is one strategy they have discussed with something like Dune, where if we let Netflix license it out for a year and then it's pulled off there and they just missed it while it was on Netflix and they have to see it, well, then that's going to drive them to our service. It's like, okay, so...
Yeah, and by then the second part will be coming out.
It's like, I get, there is some logic there, but it is funny to me too, because it's like, but you still.
I mean, it's where they're counting the numbers, and you expect them to be. Again, those are all, I think, creative ways to tackle the issue, in which they probably have seen a modicum of success, which is why they keep doing it.
Yeah.
The problem is the sustainability.
Yeah.
And this is the issue is, it's not a MoviePass situation. They've long outlived them. But when you start to see the ways in which they're not only ramping up prices, they know internally. They're not stupid. They realize there's got to be a cap.
Yeah.
And they're pressing their luck right now and inching it up, saying, well, we're going to be the streamer that nobody cancels. We're going to be the one that everybody has to have. Well, yeah, until you're $30, $40. Because then it's not only just, why don't I get cable? It's this isn't worth the cost. That, cable I didn't really enjoy and I'm not getting it, but I can get 3 other streaming services.
For the price of yours.
For the price of yours.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because the idea is that it not becomes as expensive as cable was and people are just going to put up with it. It becomes, again, how far is my dollar going? Because if you do offer me that content, that gives me a reason to spend it there and to subscribe. But the moment you either cut back on it, you're now in the catch-22 of, wait a sec, what am I paying you for then?
And what content, if you're going to raise your prices, then what else are you offering me? Because you're not giving us any better service. You took away password sharing. It's like, I know that they have like the games that you can play and stuff too. But I'm just like, there's nothing that Netflix offers, I feel like, that justifies them continuously raising the price. It's like, if you're going to raise the price, then I want more for my money, which, of course, they can't do because they're already hemorrhaging money.
Right. Well, and honestly, you bring up the Netflix games. I think that's a great point of just showing how spread thin they are. You know, you're getting involved in these other industries that necessarily you don't have your eggs. You shouldn't have your eggs in that basket yet. I mean, I think that's a little bit bold.
Maybe focusing on making your streaming service more profitable before you get into gaming too.
Because right now, their answer has been, it's not profitable yet. We'll just raise prices.
Yeah.
Yep. People will stick with us. They'll keep subscribing. Or what they're really banking on, I think, is the situation, especially with the password crackdown, is they're banking on the fact that people are going to subscribe for a month here, a month there. Even when big series come out like Stranger Things, it's like, hey, well, we'll get a huge increase there. And then they're going to slowly start rolling back their release content to huge tentpole releases, kind of like the big budget movies. It's like, we know that we're going to see a rise in this month, in this quarter, so it's going to raise subscription prices because people are. So we'll release a few other things here or there, and if something catches fire, boom, we're going to offset it to another quarter and another month where it's going to raise subscription prices at least for that, so people will binge it. But hey, that'll give us a positive month and a positive quarter, and that's all they need to do. And they've got to find that cycle to rinse and repeat to get it to be successful, and then they'll probably start at that point rolling back content. But now they're also, just like we talked about with the writer's strike and the SAG strike, they're now having to pay out more residuals to these institutions and to these unions because they signed this agreement. And they're probably already starting to think about it ahead of time, thinking, all right, we need to start thinking of how we're going to pay these residuals out right up the front. Because we know when they see these residuals and they see these view counts, they're going to be asking for it. They want that money, and we got to pay it out. And that's more red that we're operating in. So, I don't know. It really, at this point, it seems like the only game they have that they can play each card every time is just raise the prices.
Yep.
So, it'll take enough people to cancel and say, nope, that was too much before they'll do anything. So, you just got to stick with it.
Yep.
Alrighty, guys, we're moving on to our final segment of the night, multimedia.
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 That's it. We're talking about I thought you were about to like just
Explode.
release it right there. What we're talking about.
I hate you.
There you go.
Yeah,
You had to act it out
Yeah.
tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't do it to sabotage you. I swear.
I know. I know.
No.
So sad.
What futuristic tech are you looking forward to most?
Having one of these working.
I knew it was coming.
One of those. I want one that you push and this little hologram comes out and it's just Anakin. I hate you.
No, then the only
Yes.
one I would have is Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. From the first
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
I would have that one.
That would be sweet.
It'd be the only one on there that you could push. And then we would have a Star Wars parody where we have to go save the princess.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, that's it.
Save the trees.
Okay.
I just remember the WarioWare game.
I don't know where that's from.
WarioWare, and you have to like unroll the whole roll of toilet paper, and then when you get to the end of it, it pops up, save the trees, because you just wasted all the toilet paper. I love WarioWare.
It is pretty good.
It was funny.
Sean's like, I don't know what the hell
Save
you're
the
talking about.
trees. That's the futuristic tech I'm looking forward to.
Okay.
Is when you get done unrolling the toilet
more
paper.
WarioWare. Yeah, you get that rolling the toilet paper, and then something comes out and scolds you. Save the trees.
Honestly, I think futuristic tech that's already here is a bidet. So get one of those.
Yeah.
Oh,
Does
yeah.
it yell at you about saving the trees?
No, it just says your butt is warm.
Not mine. Mine's
me.
cold.
I would like some tech that folds laundry for me because I'll wash laundry. I just hate having
hate
to fold
folding
it.
laundry.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh man,
It's awful.
I have.
I would rather just throw it all in a hamper and then I just grab
Yeah.
what I need. That's I'm a guy. I don't fold them. I do the
I don't.
same.
I don't fold mine. They just go in. Stuff goes in a drawer or on hangers.
Well, you can see I've got my basket in my room. I just I
Yeah,
throw it in there.
I have a basket in the basement. It
clean.
just stays in that basket and they're clean. And I
got
just
a
pull a shirt out of the
Sock
basket.
drawer, underwear drawer, shorts drawer,
I
jeans
have them.
drawer,
I do
and then
have that.
shirts get hung.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I actually do have that.
I do have those.
hang certain shirts, and I do have like a pants drawer and an underwear drawer and all
The
that.
shorts and stuff, like, I mean, they don't ever get wrinkled.
I have drawers and closets. It's
I don't
just
fold 'em.
sometimes I don't.
Just don't
They
use
don't
them.
make them in there. It's in the basket. I can just pull it out. It's
There you
good.
go.
It's 3 days old. It smells all right.
Well, no, they're clean. They just
Oh.
they just don't get put up. They just stay in that.
In that basket.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
your clean basket.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a clean. I do have a dirty basket, and then I have all the clean
Yeah.
clothes go in the clean basket.
So wait, I mean, they do have a machine that will fold clothes for you.
Yeah.
You have to load them, but
We don't have to wait for the Jetsons to get that.
No, no,
That's
no.
out.
That's the thing. I want like a full on like. I don't want to have to touch it at all. It goes in there, gets the like. If I have to,
Oh, you need
want
an AI woman.
Yeah,
is what you
yeah.
need.
I need an AI made like Rosie
You
from the
want a
Jetsons.
wife.
I want
Yeah,
no,
that's
no. I don't want a wife. Because then I have to do.
She can- no,
she would
wives
make
can
me have
talk
to
back.
do. Yeah, wives
Yeah.
can be like, "No, you fold the clothes."
That's right.
I want Rosie from the Jetsons to go in there and fold my clothes.
She talked back.
I would put them in the washer and the dryer. I would put them in the washer. I'd get them out, put them in the dryer. I just don't want to have to fold them.
I do. It exists, but one thing I like in that regard, or it just never caught on in America, like the bidets.
Yeah.
They have the washer dryer combos where they're the same machine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You get done with the washing and it starts the dry cycle,
Yep.
and I'm like, that's legit.
Yeah.
That I mean, you don't even have
That's
to
not
stop
even the
your
future.
day.
That's just
That's now.
It could be
Yeah.
the future of America. If
I know.
If,
It's just the other, I think, like, Asian countries are far more efficient than America.
Well, they have to be because they're
They have less space.
They
Not-
have
not
less
all of
space.
them. I mean, Japan definitely
Yes.
is way
they
more
have
efficient
no space.
than America.
So yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say Tokyo is like you literally cannot
Yeah.
just move there willy nilly. You have to have like
Yeah.
set up a way because they don't have any space.
Their apartments and homes and like the
And here's the
freaking
thing.
kitchen cabinets turn into your kitchen table.
Right.
Like, I mean,
And I'll
everything
be honest
folds
with
up
you,
like
I
it's
do
crazy.
not like. I think there's something fascinating. My mom, for the longest time before I bought a house, was trying to get me into just because she wanted to do a project. And
She
love you,
tried to get you
Mom.
get a mini house.
She wanted me to get. She said they were going to help me with the materials, and she said all you have to do is buy the trailer, but we'll make you one. She wanted me to make a tiny home.
Oh.
And
you
literally,
know.
or no, they were willing to buy the trailer and the materials. All I had to do was buy the plot of land. And I was just like,
They
I
wanted
don't
to
want to
build you a
live
tiny
in a
home.
tiny house.
Yeah. I've stayed in one before. They're tiny.
I mean, that's the thing. Here's the thing. I think it would be
terrible.
cool and unique.
like a fun vacation or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
live.
But I'm
live
just
that
like,
way.
and look, you're already somewhat exposed in even just a small house.
Yeah.
But like in a tiny house, I'm like, man, either a strong wind
Yeah.
or somebody just like knocks on my door, they break in. It's like, oh, you're in my whole house.
Yeah.
Just like, what am I gonna do to defend myself? So I'm just like, no, I
you
don't
get a
like
shotgun out and blow like your whole wall out.
that. There you go. But I'm just like, yeah, nah. that whole tiny house revolution. I'm just like, it was a whole like a government op that was just all it was to try to get people to sell their possessions, go live on a plot of land somewhere, and not have much to own at all. Like stop consumerism.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do with the wall. It's kind of
on
scary.
the border.
No. We need that.
That's not getting built.
No, not at all.
What are you talking about? Now it is.
No.
That's been reversed.
No. Well, he had no choice.
Yeah.
That wasn't his
No.
decision.
But no, there's this. It's called the Wall, and it's like I think Saudi Arabia is. I think it's in Saudi Arabia. They're wanting to build a
Great
wall
of China.
that literally is like several miles long, and yet it's spaced in such a way that it's like a city. It literally they
they live inside the wall,
and it lives in like these tight knit corridors within this wall.
They already live underground, so I guess that ain't too much different.
I'm just saying, it's freaking weird, man.
It's like instead of underground, we're going to live in the walls.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in Saudi Arabia, it's all the rich oil people
I would say,
and princes and stuff like that. You're thinking of Iran or Afghanistan.
No,
or something like
but
that.
this is the thing. They wanted to build it there for people to afford it because it was supposed to be sold as like a luxury thing that you go and live there.
It's a
and
privilege to live inside the walls.
They wanted to
Right.
make the container homes too.
Yes.
the shipping containers.
Oh yeah, no.
Yep.
See, that would be
He's
a
gonna
fun
build cities
vacation.
out of
I wouldn't
those.
want to live in it,
But
that
way,
would be
everything
fun.
would look like
The Last of Us.
Ready Player One.
Okay, that.
Yeah.
Yes,
that
yeah.
Ready Player
Yeah.
One. Yeah.
And here's
The
the weird thing.
stacks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it was supposed to be you own nothing. Everything's 5 minutes away. All your stuff is 5 minutes away. That was
Why would
supposed
you
to
ever
be-
need to own anything?
Well, of course not.
Full communism.
Well, this was supposed to be a futuristic tech we are enjoying
Yeah.
or looking forward to.
Looking
not,
forward to.
Not the doom
I'm going to
and
go
gloom.
ahead and just get into. I'm looking forward to like legitimate contact lenses that you can take pictures with.
Yes.
Blink and take a photo.
That would be cool.
There's so many moments with kids and stuff that you miss fumbling trying to get to a camcorder. A camcorder. I can't believe I just said that. a video camera or your phone, and you miss it.
Yeah.
And to think that you could have something in your eye or at least on your eyes, like glasses that work fast and well enough that you can literally catch every moment that you would want without like missing it.
Yeah.
That to me
Yeah.
would be awesome.
I mean, just kind of springboard off that a little bit. I mean, I was serious about the laundry thing. I wish something would fold my laundry, but to have something like that, like glasses, like kind of like Marvel with Robert Downey Jr., something that like true like augmented reality where like you can see a screen in front of you, but it's not really there, but because you have whatever on and you can interact like your phone, like that would be cool to actually be able to have like not
Apple Vision.
not in your way, a true actual
But it
Apple
doesn't
Vision or
look like
something.
you're wearing a space
But yeah,
helmet.
you're just like,
Yeah.
I just got my glasses on and I'm like, oh, I need to answer this text. It's right here in front of me. I could build like, something interactive like that.
And I think that's
actually
real.
works.
I think that's realistic. I think that's coming with
Yeah.
AR
Oh, yeah,
becoming
no
a new
doubt.
thing now.
The weird thing
Yeah.
about that is I always go back to the doom and gloom. It's like the moment you get closer, like even with the contacts, I agree because that's still an actual like tangible device you have to interact with.
Yeah.
But is it getting close enough that it's an implant? Like that it's
No, see, I'm not cool with
Yeah, no, no.
implants.
I don't want to.
I don't either. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
They
Like,
tell me like I ever have to have some type of chip, I'd be like, nah.
Nah.
same. Because they're already doing that with like people who like walk in with their wrist and they'll scan.
Yeah.
Like it's got your credit card info, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. Nope.
I don't need the government.
Don't need no nano machines
Yeah.
in me. Nope. And it's funny because it's like,
That's definitely going that way
Yes.
too.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
definitely
no
in the
doubt.
future where everybody's just like, you put your chip in and do it, and then one day we'll activate the kill switch.
there you go. Exactly.
They've already tested it out. We got those alerts.
That's what I'm saying. That's what everybody thought was going to happen.
They did. Everybody
We're
was
not
like,
zombies.
It's going to be like the Kingsman, and everybody's head was going to blow
Yep,
up.
That's it.
They did.
Yeah.
They panicked.
Hey, I turned my phone off.
I did.
Did you get the alert when it came back on though?
Nope.
You didn't.
Nope. Did not.
Oh, wow.
I had like 3 devices in my house going off, all like at 1:57.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be at 2:00, and at 1:57, like I'm just like, oh god,
My
because
phone did
everything
not go
starts-
off, but other things did.
Mine was
yeah.
way later. Mine was like 2:20 or something.
Yeah, ours-
It was supposed to
I got
be
it at
between
2:18.
2 and like
Yeah.
2:30. So, but mine like went off like 3 minutes early, and I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not 2:00.
I
yet,
had just
you
I
liars."
set an alarm for 2:15.
Yeah.
And that was when I was going to turn my phone off, and like at 2:17 or 18 is when.
Or maybe it was supposed to be from
My wife's
2:30 to
phone went off.
3, and it went off early. That's what
But
it was. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I know the TV, like the TV stations, we had it at a separate time from the phones. Like they
Gotcha.
were all different. They're all part of the same.
Yeah, my phone,
emergency
my
system,
iPad,
but-
my Alexa.
I look forward to a time where the internet is
Dead.
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Like, I mean, accessible
opposites here.
anywhere. I kind of feel like it's like, okay, if that's what he's going for with these Starlink is to get satellite internet available to the deepest, darkest jungles, that's great. But I kind of feel like with the amount of money that we're paying in taxes, the internet ought to just be freaking free.
The only problem I have with that is then it becomes like a municipality. And then, you have the service providers who have to provide it.
Because you got to pay for your LG&E, your electric, your water.
I mean, the problem, I agree. To me, as long as the principle of the internet is free, I don't want it to become something like, oh, well, you're entitled to the air you breathe, and nobody should be,
you pay
breathing
taxes
in
for
terrible
your air?
Well, we do. We paid for freaking catalytic converters on cars
that's true,
to
which
keep
is
from
stupid.
smog, in the air. Look, and I'm
Complete
not saying
scam.
there's not certain things that you shouldn't, as a society, look out for. But I think when it comes to the internet, and maybe it's because of the age and generation I was born in, and it was the rise of the internet and everything connected. It's crazy because as much bad as there is on the internet, it's sad to think that the only way moving forward, like everything that has any government intervention in it, is going to be just more regulation.
Oh, no, I'd like the government to stay away from generally everything.
No, I agree.
Leave it all alone.
And it's like that's just not the telltale sign of history. Is like that's not going to be the case.
Oh yeah.
And not only that, but it's like, and I'm all for certain crackdowns when it comes to like corporations doing it. When it comes to Facebook and the former Twitter and also
for making sure that things do stay free and open. Like when you have corporations that are provenly censoring people just because of whatever,
it doesn't fit the narrative that they've been told.
It's like, okay, that's no
orchestrate.
longer free or freedom of speech. So in that regard, there should be something saying, no, you have to leave this alone. But now when it goes the opposite way of saying, of impinging on freedoms, that's where I have the problem in regulations.
Right. I agree. And that's always the scary thing when it comes to anything, not only as interconnected as we are with technology, but I mean, in any kind of industry in that regard. And I agree. It's like, I think if the internet was free and it's freely available in terms of, it is there. You're
right. You can go to the library and access the internet for free.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, and however we get it, I don't really care whether it was. I agree. I wouldn't want it being something that the government was in control of, to where they can tell me how much I can use and how much I can't, and all. I like paying for it, but I'm saying in places of the world where it'd be nice if just some billionaire would create the vast network of satellites like Elon is doing, and just say it's a world good. I'm doing it. If you want to access it, you can. It's not the fastest thing around, but if you live in this part of the world where you don't get Spectrum or whatever, you can access mine, and it's free. Just have at it.
And
have
I think
fun.
they're moving that direction. I think they are. In terms of making everybody
It's like you want a gigabit, you got to pay for it. But if you're okay with 3G,
20 megs.
if you're okay with 3G or 5G speeds or something like your 4G speeds, then it's enough for you to connect to and make an emergency phone call in the darkest parts of the Amazon. Then great, that's great.
In that regard, I would agree. I think having open access to information just in general, whether it's internet, because they'll say, well, libraries and this and that, I think is very important for society just in general, because when
I think they would
Think
argue
about
that
North Korea.
It's available.
If those people could, access, if they could access Starlink secretly and actually see what it's like outside of their country.
When you control the information people are allowed to have, you completely control whatever narrative you want.
His empire would fall apart if people had access to
and
the outside
that's why
world.
I'd say I do agree that, definitely we people deserve access to that information, just because anytime the government limits information, they can control whatever narrative they want to sell to the people. So
right. Well, and that's the thing too, is it's like I don't know how that's stipulated, because I know internationally, it's like, that's kind of what the dark web is. The dark web is you can get on there, and it's just called the onion router. Anybody can get on it, and you can go through where it's.
You have to have an internet connection to get on it.
But I'm just saying, like,
I'm talking about the general connection is what I think people should be able to get.
But like, again, it's still the connection is just like the first gateway, because it's like the people in North Korea, even like if they get Starlink, if there's some international law that Elon has to abide by that says, well, this is the only pathway into this area, and it ends up still blocking out certain IP addresses or certain ways of funneling information to where it's still blocked. Primarily, it doesn't really do anything a net positive.
Right. Well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because
It's
their
like-
government would be blocking it.
Right.
I'm saying if he had it up there and just said it's there, it's going to be there for the next 600 years. It's free. Anybody who wants to use, as long as I'm in business, it's operational. You can use it.
Right.
Free.
Yeah. No.
Then that
think-
would be great.
Absolutely.
But
And
again,
if it was-
I understand. Yeah, North Korea would have ways to block that.
And that's
their people.
and that's the thing. I think there's always going to be that kind of, I guess, battle of again, the freedom of information versus. I mean, heck, we fight it in this country as free as we'd like to claim we are.
And
There's
we're
a lot
paying
of
for it,
there's
and it's
reasons
still not
FOIA
freedom.
requests
Yeah.
go out because it's like there's information out there that's sealed and never told to the public or never even announced. But this kind of got on a tangent of things I wasn't expecting, but I think that's going to have to do it.
Sometimes futuristic technology just leads to apocalyptic discussion.
That's how it is. Well,
AI, the creator.
there it is. We don't have it on the sound box, but
I'm not
It's
looking forward
not
to that
working!
future tech at all.
No, the AI stuff. That's why I wanted to bring up a more positive thing because AI I think is
ChatGPT now they have where you talk to it.
Oh,
on their app, you pay $20 a month and you can have an actual conversation with it. Like you don't type, you just talk,
You just talk.
that's scary.
and it talks back
And
to
it
you.
says hi.
Yeah,
Hello, Dave.
That's just
I want to do it. Like
do it for a month.
I've been thinking about it.
We could do it here on the show.
I think it would be pretty.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
pretty cool.
I'd be thinking. I'd pitch in.
Have it as a guest on the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
See what it thinks about movies,
Yeah.
and then by the end, like, what if we get it to crash? What if we're so demented we can get it to crash? And
I generally
ChatGPT servers can't come back.
I generally try to do that with most. I do that.
You crash people.
Snapchat has Snapchat has an AI that I
You
try
crash
to.
the human spirit.
Yeah.
It hates me. I know it hates me. I try to use circular logic against it all the time,
Which
and
is
it's-
awesome.
And it's just like I'm not allowed. I basically just boils down to finally saying I'm not allowed to say anything else about this.
That's what I love about it. Because so many people are blown away by it. Again, it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier with the movies. It's like when you're so blown away by it, like, again, I liken it to a magician. If you want to sit there and be amazed, you can be. It's really creative and it is interesting. And there are some scary things that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
Way more than we even speculate sometimes. But then there is that other, that other end of it is how easy is it just to break it?
Yeah.
And that shows you how fragile it really is when it comes down to it. Which is why we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But
Not on this show. We don't.
No, we don't.
No.
We got to wrap it up. We got to go.
It's
Alrighty,
time to
guys.
go.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. And of course, we've already told you the movies that we're reviewing next week, which happen to be, yes, that's right, Exorcist Believer.
The Exorcist.
And Don't Breathe, starring Stephen Lang. So catch those. Sean's going to hold it for the rest of the show.
He's
That's
not
right.
gonna
Like,
breathe.
share, subscribe, all the social media. Can't. He's going to die. He's going to die.
Well,
All
he
the
is
social
now.
media at the bottom of your screen. Red Moon Book on Facebook, Red Moon Tweet on X. It's changed on there now.
Nice.
Red Moon Pics on Instagram, and of course, search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube and Rumble. We appreciate all the love out there. Like, share, subscribe. And that old-fashioned way of getting us. You better hurry up, Keith.
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
That's it, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
He did it! And
Now I'm not breathing.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.